Right, so staying with diverting coverage, we take you live to the Union Buildings in Pretoria as we monitor activities ahead of the presidential inauguration. Let's cross to Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor, who is standing by. Sophie, good morning. It was a rather frosty start to the morning, but obviously the clock is ticking. We're edging closer to that official program kicking off. Talk to us about the expectations at this point ahead of the program and perhaps also that 7th administration at large.
Well, yes, Leon, that moment of the swearing in of the President of the Republic of South Africa is fast approaching. At 11 o'clock, the formalities will start. Many people have arrived. I saw the governor of the Reserve Bank. I saw former finance ministers. I saw many dignitaries. But what is critical at this juncture is what is going to happen after the swearing in as we look forward to the configuration of the cabinet. But let's continue this discussion with our political editor, Mzwandile. Mbeje, quite an important moment. Yes, the swearing in, it's almost done. Not a lot of work, but the critical issue, the president will have to form this GNU. And that important Lekgotla, what can we expect? Are we likely to see cabinet shrinking, or are we going to see more ministers and deputy ministers? But importantly, the configuration of the clusters of cabinet, what can we expect?
I think what we'll see happen, Sophie, I don't think the cabinet will shrink now that there is a GNU in place, because he will need to take into account that as much as he will accommodate other people from other parties, but his own people as well. So still do expect to form part of that cabinet and the executive, and they will still be in the majority. So if you shrink it, so then the slides become even smaller. But also importantly, I don't see him give away the so-called strategic departments, because I guess as much as they are in a GNU, the ANC still has an upper hand, and I think he will want to hang on to some of those. But of course, there will be a lot of compromises, because at some point there has to be sufficient consensus.
You are saying ANC has got an upper hand. Helen Zille is saying ANC didn't win elections. They can't behave like they've won elections, and therefore consultation will be key.
Certainly, that's why I think they included this sufficient consensus. But in the end, you have to look at the proportional representation of the parties. I mean, currently the ANC is at 40%, the DA is at around 20%, and then you have other smaller parties. So that will also have to come into account. That is why we are not even speaking about the issue of the presidency, because there is that recognition that the ANC is still the bigger party, and then they will have their president, and likely they will have their deputy president. So some of the then portfolios obviously will be shared, but I can't see the portfolio in the foreign affairs, for example, or even in the justice sector, for example. So those are quite key, and I think the part that is in charge will want to hold on to those. But of course, because this is about serving the country, not individuals, so they'll be able to then engage on others.
Earlier on, I said he has got nothing to lose. He is fully aware in terms of the challenges facing the country that led to this performance of the governing party. Do you think the economic cluster in particular, are we likely to see some changes and also a pressure to ensure that you turn the economy around, because we are where we are because of the economy and failure to deliver at the grassroots?
There may be adjustments here and there, but in terms of the core policies, I don't see anything changing much in that regard. But for example, let's say the issue of trade and industry, I can see perhaps he may be able to move around with that kind of a department. But the key sectors of energy and all those things, and I still think the governing party, the ANC in this instance, will probably hold on to them. but also there would be deputy ministers as well, which form part of the executive. So in some instances, you may have the minister from a different party deputized by someone from another party.
And finally, some people were saying this is an opportunity for him to also look at technocrats, people who can deliver. If you talk about the economy, people with business acumen don't necessarily think about politicians when you constitute cabinet. Are we likely to see surprises?
I don't think so. I think what we'll see people being appointed from the parties, and perhaps the president may have one or two individuals outside of parliament, but still people who are still in the party to be part of this. I don't see him going outside because he is also aware that any movement which deviates sharply from what we expect may be seen as an influence of, let's say, the DA in this instance. So he will be very careful in that regard. So there will be somehow a steady hand with emphasis here and there.
Thank you so much. My colleague Mzwandile Mbeje, quite an important moment in the history of the SADC region, of the continent, and of South Africa in particular. And as we pointed out, whatever he is going to do, the incoming President-elect, President Cyril Ramaphosa, will have to ensure that whatever happens in terms of administration and delivery and all of that, that will translate into the governing party turning the situation around, because if it doesn't, the governing party is going to have problems during the local government elections in 2026 and of course the next national and provincial government. And as I pointed out, he has got nothing to lose. He can be bold, he can deliver for the nation.